Funding now on Indiegogo, it's Shadowbinders, our second chance offer to get 2 hardcovers of our classic webcomic delivered to your door. Steampunk, fantasy, and romantic comedy from Clownfish Comics. Go to Indiegogo, check out the link in the description below. Now on with the video. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And this is going to be a long video.
It is. Get ready.
Just so you know. Usually we do our videos in 15-20 minutes. This one's probably going to wind up being like 45 minutes or an hour. We're going to talk about the continued attack on fandoms by the media. Again, we're in the end game now. Everything has been kind of leading up to what we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks in regards to attacking Star Wars fans, attacking gamers, attacking Snyder Cut fans, and I do believe that it all ties into this, the fact that these media outlets are laying people off, laying digital journalists off because the venture capital has run out. And because of that, these journalists are desperately trying to hit the beehive, whack the beehive.
Keep a narrative going that has been disproven time and time again.
They want to roll the clock back to 2015, 2016 when they could bank on attacking the fans, they could bank on Gamergate outrage, they could bank on Trump.
When people actually listen to them.
Yeah.
Because I think what's going on is people are just realizing more and more that they're full of shit and they aren't listening to them. And that's what they're mad about.
Yeah, so it's starting to ramp up, but you know, we've said before that there is some collusion behind the scenes, and I 100% agree that there is. We saw this with the Women in Comics group, where you had a lot of comic book journalists hanging out there, and they were all sort of picking a target that they were going to smear, and all of a sudden you'd see these hit pieces or Twitter gossip, all this stuff would happen kind of in lockstep.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Because then they think the more voices that hit it at once, the more likely people are going to believe it. And people are onto them now. So it's not working the way they wanted it to. And then instead they turn around and project that anybody who doesn't like Star Wars are all working for Steve Bannon.
Yeah, so that was a couple of weeks ago. You know, this ridiculous Rewriting Ripley article dropped, and you know, we said it was like a chum bucket. It was like, you know, they worked on it for months, probably compared notes with people behind the scenes, dumped this thing, and all these journos, it was like a feeding frenzy. They all started using it.
And as soon as this Hollywood Reporter article that we're going to talk about dropped, Rewriting Ripley was one of the ones that tweeted right away.
Yes.
Coincidence? I think not.
It's not a coincidence. So if they want to talk about conspiracy theories and tie every independent YouTuber to Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos and the alt-right and all this other bullshit.
Oh, and they're all together, working together.
Everybody's
we don't talk to most of the people. That
I don't even know most of the people.
I know, it's funny. But interestingly enough, on this new Hollywood Reporter article, before we even get into it, you're going to probably take a wild guess what they're going to bring up. You're never going to guess. You'd be so shocked and amazed. Because of course they're going to bring up Ghostbusters 2016. Again.
Why?
Of course they're going to bring up Star Wars and Kelly Marie Tran. And now they're trying to say that by Bully John Boyega too. Again. Of course they're going to go there and they're going to bring up Christina Ariel and Gina Carano and everything they keep trying to do. It's the exact same thing. It's like, they're just repeating it again. Yes, bingo. It's
bingo.
Like, it's like really, it's like a joke at this point. It's such, they are a mockery. It's hilarious.
It's alt-right fan bingo is what this is. But it really is troubling because it shows, you know, the media, how this machine actually works and how a lot of these people weaseled into fan press. It used to be that fans covered fan stuff because nobody else cared. And then once Hollywood got involved in comics and animation and all that,
and stuff.
Yeah, they started literally buying out blogs. Like Nerdist is owned by Legendary. I don't know how many people know that. Comicbook.com is owned by Viacom and CBS.
Well, even Hollywood Reporter is owned by the same people who own Variety and Deadline. I wonder why they have the same types of articles all the damn time. Huh? How does that work? So, you know, and then it's interesting too. We're gonna look at Twitter here in a bit too, and who this person who wrote this article is friends with, and what some of their write-ups are.
Yeah, this is no coincidence. All of this is kind of snapping into place, and we have a lot of the same players. And what I believe the end game is to try to discredit and smear as many independent voices, as many fandoms, and as many YouTubers as they possibly can, desperately hoping to cling to their jobs because I'm sure they're being told, bring views. Well, what brings views? Whether people come into the site to just laugh at them or mock them, or they're truly outraged, it brings views and interaction.
Well, not just that. Some of the friends they have, like this person has particularly, are, you know, involved with Warner Media and things.
Yeah.
So who benefits? You know, oh, we're having a problem with, you know, this narrative that, well, the truth. I'm sorry, I won't call it the narrative. We're having a problem with the truth. So can you guys like do some articles to try to, you know, to make them out to be terrible people so that we can control the narrative? I mean, which is more believable?
So Graham McMillan, who was the comics writer for Hollywood Reporter
for the Heat Vision, which is the same area. Yeah,
got gone in January. This Aaron Couch might be next on the list.
Well, he's like he's like the senior editor, I think, for Heat Vision. But they're from the exact same thing, this Heat Vision division of Hollywood Reporter.
And if you watch the video I did yesterday, we kind of recapped that a lot of these geek media outlets are shutting down. Sci-Fi shut down Fangirls. They're making massive cuts to Nerdist and Geek and Sundry because Hollywood can't sustain these because, frankly, real fans are finding other fans to listen to.
Well, I think it's the same with like Disney, for example. They kept trying the Cupcake Party. We control the narrative with these blogs by making sure they're owned by our travel or they're supported by the travel agencies.
Yeah.
And to make sure that if you want media access, you'll play ball. So, you know, they're all in lockstep on these same stories at the same time. And the ones that are growing are the sites that are the ones that are telling the truth, that are just like, hey, we're not just going to say everything's great because you said so.
Yeah, and that's how fan journalism used to be. It used to be, you know, by the fans, for the fans, objective. And then, you know, of course, we had, you know, as gaming and comics and all that became bigger money, then the studios, the publishers wanted to mainstream it. They wanted to control it, or there'd probably be some threats like, hey, we're not going to spend money to advertise in your magazine or your website anymore if you don't play ball.
Wasn't it the LA Times that called out that Disney didn't give them access to some of their movies for premieres because they didn't like the one review they gave them? I mean, I don't have that in front of me, so don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that was going on.
Yeah, they didn't like some of the reviews, and it was also that they were negatively covering the situation with Anaheim. So Disney blacklisted them from movie premieres. And that's how these companies work. They basically, if they don't own the blog directly, then they threaten to withhold media access. And I'm to the point now where I'm like, does it even really matter if all of the interviews sound exactly the same because these people all have the same talking points? What's the point?
Well, I think it's funny too with Warner Media, and now they have this chick, you know, bashing the fans, the Snyder Cut fans and stuff. But they were the ones that told the media to step off with the Joker because the media was out there, if you recall, trying to connect the Joker to the shootings that happened in Colorado in the movie theater, and they were trying to connect it to a bunch of other things, the toxic outright males and all this other stuff. And it got so bad that that Warner basically told them they weren't allowed to be asking questions or to go to the premiere or whatever because they were having trouble with it. But now that they want to, you know, use the media to their advantage, now they're going to put statements out about how toxic fans are wrong and bad and terrible.
So, you know, I use a quote. I don't know where I got it from, but you know, you can't play checkers against a chess player. And that's you know, they used to be able to control the narrative with the media, and they were used to doing that, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, and people fell for it. They're not falling for it now. And it's obvious when you look at the connections, how the studios and the publishers or whatever are trying to manipulate public perception, but it's done in such a clumsy fashion. It's like you're playing checkers against fans who have become chess players over the last couple of years. Well, they can see through it.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's like that. People aren't going to let you do it. Keep doing it. They know you're full of shit, and they're calling you out. And that's our great sin. And the reason we're put on these lists and labeled alt-right, even though we're not even Republican, and being, you know, smeared right and left, is because we dared, you know, put this out there and connect the dots and say, hey, you don't get to call people names. You know, because if you follow the channel at all, you know I always say, hey, you're allowed to like something, you're allowed to not like something. What I have a problem with is the fact that you are not allowed to not like certain things. And if you don't like something, no matter what your reason is, it's automatically because you're some kind of istophobe. And it's usually done by, some white dude trying to tell, you that you're not, that how dare you be against, this or that because you're a racist or you're a misogynist. Meanwhile, the person he's talking to is a female or somebody who's not white. I joked. I said, what's this guy, white guy?
Yeah.
I rest my case.
It's either going to be a white guy or a white woman.
Right. But I love it how these people go around and they always say about, we're speaking for these minorities. And that's not true, because I think it's even more insulting, because when people that are those things that you're claiming you're representing and speaking for, when they correct you and say, hey, don't speak for me because I don't agree with you, they're either, mocked, targeted, or completely stepped over.
Yeah.
Depending on, if you're just a white woman, they'll mock you. If you're like, a black woman, they might just step over you because, we can't be looking like we're picking on, this black woman who's telling you that stop speaking for me because you're not representing me.
You either get it, you don't get it at all, or you get it 10 times worse than I do from certain, like if anybody's going to get a DM from some crazy cartoon fan, it's going to be you. It's usually not me. It's usually you, because
I think they're going to get somewhere with me, and it's like, have you met me?
Yeah, it's like she's harder to sway than I am, guys. So, but that's the thing, though. They only go for certain fandoms, and we're seeing now, again, Justice League, Snyder Cut fans, Star Wars fans, they bring up
Toxic
Ghostbusters.
Fans, just in the title. Justice League, Star Wars, Toxic Fandom, just in the title.
This was put out in the BBC last year.
Yeah.
Almost the exact same article. And when you look at the motivation here is probably, again, the slap down Snyder Cut fans. Last year, the BBC put this out on their blog, and they led with Sonic, but they were basically like, you can't give the fans what they want because they'll turn on you, whatever. And you get to the bottom of it, and it's basically about them defending Doctor Who, because Doctor Who has gotten shit on the last couple
BBC,
years.
so of course they were.
Yeah, and that's what, given the connections this guy has with Warner, it's probably like, go write something to, protect Dan Sarnoff because she said something stupid about.
I think it's funny is they even say in this article about the vocal minority. Here's the thing: if it was just the vocal minority that don't like these films or have problems, why did Ghostbusters 2016 fail? Why did The Last Jedi fall off a cliff, and then The Rise of Skywalker didn't do great, and then now Disney has gone back to classic Star Wars and moving on to new things, even though the media keeps trying to bring it back to Last Jedi. They themselves have moved on. They keep saying this. If it was just the vocal minority, why did like the Terminator film do poorly? It's just you cannot blame it on the vocal minority, because the world at large, globally, didn't go support these movies either. So there's no way in hell it's just people like us, and it's our fault.
Yeah, going back to the announcement of Ghostbusters Afterlife, Leslie Jones had a meltdown on Twitter and was like, well, fuck us. It's like, well, yeah, your movie didn't make money. In the defense of shitty movies and shitty games and shitty comics is basically like, oh my God, you don't like it, you hate XYZ kind of person, not like, well, maybe it's us. Maybe we need to look at it and be like...
No, it's never their fault. They always blame everyone else, which we're going to talk about more in this, as this goes. But like 2016, Ghostbusters, I remember when they announced they were doing it, and for all the media, like, oh, it's because they hate women. The majority of people, if you look at what the comments were basically like, why do we need another Ghostbusters? Why are they rebooting Ghostbusters? That's stupid. Why are they doing this? Yeah,
if it had been a sequel and they hadn't beat the drum of, women. Because what this looked like to a lot of fans, and it was a huge diss, was let's take a beloved classic movie, Lightning in a Bottle, reboot it unnecessarily, replace the main cast with all women, and then start attacking the fans if they don't like this change. It's like, it'd be like going into a museum and taking a bottle of spray paint and spray painting over a work of art and then being like, well, you're just a misogynist because it was a woman that spray painted that.
Exactly.
It's like there was no reason to reboot Ghostbusters.
Even the people that were supporting it, people didn't go. I'm like, I'm sorry, people didn't go see it. And it was funny because those years were the years of, women, women, women. And then it went women, women, women. Let's push that to LGBTQ. We have to push that over anything. And then last year was Black Lives Matter. And now we're going into Asian Lives Matter. Of course, all these people matter. I don't think that anybody, people, if you debate that people that aren't straight, matter, or that someone that's not white matters, then you're a dipshit and you're an asshat and you should slap yourself. But I think most people know that all these people matter. It's just that they keep having this flavor of the year that they want to shove down everybody's throats. And then if you have any complaint about the movie, Ghostbusters 2016 was a really bad movie. It was stupid. I am sorry. It was a bad, stupid movie. The dance sequence just went way up. I mean, come on. A dance number? Are you effing kidding me? This is why Spider-Man 3 did so shitty. I mean, they went way too far way into shitville. So did Ghostbusters 2016. It could have been a good movie and it wouldn't have been getting the backlash it's getting.
That needs to be our podcast name. Welcome to Shitville.
Yeah. This is going to be our spinoff. But I'm like, they took a turn into shitville and then people didn't like it. And it's because, well, you obviously hate women. I'm a woman. I don't hate women.
Official Ghostbusters account 2 years ago on Thanksgiving. Every incarnation of Ghostbusters, including both animated series, are represented. Ghostbusters 2016 is missing. Now, it's weird. You go out to do an image search and somebody just like pasted it in here. But if you still go out and the tweet's still up, they're just like, yeah, you know what? We're ignoring 2016 because we know it was a disaster. People were pissed. They're like, you missed something. You missed them. It's like, no, they knew what they're doing. They knew it was a disaster. They did it because they thought it was going to be a quick cash grab, and it backfired. And so what goes on is, again, these studios make stupid, idiotic decisions, and then they blame the fans, and they use the media to attack the fans. Rinse and repeat. This has been going on for at least 6 or 7 years now. That's been noticeable. I think there's been some low-key fan bashing going on for a while. Now, again, want to reiterate, we know there are shitty fans.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We always say that there are people that actually legitimately are trolls.
By and large, most fans of any franchise are usually good people who are just passionate about whatever they're fans of. But it's interesting how they pick and choose. It's always Snyder Cut fans, Alita fans, Star Wars fans. You never see the headlines, toxic Steven Universe fans tell people to go kill themselves.
Or put needles in. Was it Steven Universe? Whatever it was. What toxic Voltron fans were having meltdowns. Toxic, K-pop fans.
You see it occasionally, but not to the extent of Snyder Cut fan. Again, it's every fandom. You've got crazies in every fandom. That does not make up the majority of fans. What happens is when you paint everybody with a broad brush, they withhold their money from you. They stop being fans of a franchise. I can tell you for myself, it's not the case with you. For myself, I have stopped being a Star Wars fan because of the way Lucasfilm has been treating people, including its own people, and how Disney has handled the franchise. I don't give a shit about any Disney Star Wars at this point. I just don't. And you can vouch for that. Like,
true.
I've lost all excitement for Star Wars. I have stopped being a fan. This is after years of being a super fan. I just don't care.
Yeah. And that's worse than having loving something or hating something. Apathy is like the kiss of death. And well, anyway, let's actually get to the article.
Yeah,
we've been talking all around it. But of course, it's going to be the same stuff that you're hearing every time.
Bingo.
So let's take a look at this. Every hashtag and every buzzword we could shove in this.
God, this is going to be a long video, guys. So Heat Vision, from Justice League to Star Wars, studios reckon with toxic fandom. Hollywood majors are learning they can't be silent about... They've been silent. No, they've been using idiots like you to do their dirty work.
They can't be silent about what happens on social media when it goes against their narrative. Yeah. Like, it's okay if you're silent about, people bullying people like Gina Carano. Yeah, stay silent about that. But you better speak out when it affects us and our narrative. You better.
When Zack Snyder's Justice League hit HBO Max on March 18th and actually broke the servers, it did. It marked the culmination of a years-long effort by a devoted group of DC fans to allow the director to finish a film he left in 2017. Along the way, Snyder's fans raised $500,000 for suicide prevention in honor of the filmmaker's daughter.
They're not mentioning too, weren't a lot of the celebrities that were involved in the Justice League, the actors, weren't they saying that yes, there was indeed a Snyder cut, and the media kept saying there wasn't, and the actors were even like, yes, there was a better version, it was the Snyder cut version. It wasn't just the fans.
Yeah. So this is, again, it's very interesting to watch the media flip, whatever is the most useful narrative to promote whatever it is they're trying to promote or destroy. Yeah, they did for years. They're like, there's no such thing as a Snyder cut. Just give it up. And they're like, no, we filmed a bunch of scenes.
And then what about Ray Fisher?
Yeah, Ray Fisher's like, yeah, Zack Snyder was great. Joss Whedon was trash.
And Ray Fisher got completely shafted in the original version. He has the character of Cyborg is infinitely better in the Snyder cut. That's a black dude. I mean, why aren't you backing him up? I mean, he's been calling this shit out. That's not mentioned here.
Well, they backed him up last year because it was fashionable.
Right.
But yeah, everybody, and you can see it in the Snyder cut. You can see why he was so damn salty, because they totally nerfed Cyborg.
They did. And I mean,
Flash.
even Flash. Yes, yeah. I agree with that too. And I'm just like, it wasn't just the fans who are pushing for the Snyder cut. Plus, all the fans are pushing for the Snyder cut. There might be a couple that were toxically doing bad things, but the majority of people were not. So you're going to label everyone again, because we hear the small but vocal segment.
Then why keep, if it's a small but vocal segment, why keep writing articles like this? Why, the BBC keeps writing articles like this? It might only be a couple of hundred people who are terrible out of the millions of people that are supporting,
Because people are listening to people like us, and they want to label us as the small but toxic fandom, even though we had nothing to do with the Snyder cut. We had nothing to do with Gamergate.
No.
We had nothing to do with a lot of this stuff. We always say, hey, you're allowed to like something. We just stand up against the idea that if you do not like something, it's because you're a toxic, bad person. It might just be because it was shit.
Yeah, that can't be true. That's impossible.
Always somebody else's fault.
It's always somebody else's fault. If people don't like the shit they're being given, then it's their fault for being horrible people, right? Mm-hmm. Because we can't do anything wrong.
Oh, then we have to get the CEO Ann Sarnoff in here again.
Yeah, well, okay, so this is the thing. So Ann Sarnoff, who actually greenlit the Snyder cut, as far as I know, that would have been on her watch. She did make this comment. I'm very disappointed in the fans that have chosen to go to that negative place in regards to DC with regards to some of our executives.
I agree. I mean, I wouldn't think it was okay that if people are doing shitty things, it's not okay. Don't do shitty things. I mean, and that's on both sides.
In years past, Sony watched trolls attack the female-led 2016 Ghostbusters. Yeah, and then actually the official account left them out.
Mm-hmm.
So
the movie bombed. You can't blame trolls for that.
The bean counters are like, the movie didn't make money. The toys didn't sell. Nothing connected to this movie is profitable.
And it wasn't for lack of positive buzz, because the media,
pumped it up.
Yeah, that were working for Hollywood, writing articles like this, pumped the hell of it up. So everybody was getting these positive spins on it, but people still didn't go see it. That you cannot blame, people, YouTube channels or something for that. You cannot do it.
So, okay, we're going to go through this because there's a lot to unpack here, and a lot of this are just
here we go. They get Captain Marvel in here. Captain Marvel's Rotten Tomato score is sandbag. Yes, but you also didn't mention the fact that there was a concerted effort in Twitter groups to deliberately artificially inflate the Captain Marvel numbers. There were theaters that turned out that seats were sold.
Empty theaters.
Empty. And a lot of the fans were like, hey, why do we not have Monica Rambeau? Because I think Monica Rambeau would be a better choice for Captain Marvel than Carol Danvers. Why do we not have Monica Rambeau? Why are they being racist against Monica Rambeau? And then they spun it as, oh, the fans were racist and hate black women.
Yeah, Lucasfilm was silent as John Boyega and Kelly Marie Tran endured racist abuse. Now we're going to go down the rabbit hole here, because this is quite the sticky situation. Actually, it was Disney who did not put John Boyega front and center in the sequels.
Right. They shrunk him on the poster.
They shrunk him on the poster.
Fans were like, we wanted Finn to have a bigger part. Finn was put, when it was marketed, you all thought Finn was going to be a Jedi. They had him with the lightsaber. Yep. You're like, oh my God. And then people wanted more Finn. They wanted more Poe too. And they did not give you that. Instead, they added these women, because that was the flavor of the year, was women, that they showed up and put in for no reason. No one has any problem with Kelly Marie Tran. I've said multiple times, I think she's adorable and I love her. I think she's a sweetheart. The character they gave her to work with was shit. I'm sorry. Rose Tico was a crappy character. Her motivation was crappy. They added her and they added Admiral Holdo. And the only reason they were there suddenly out of nowhere were to be foils to the male characters because women, rule, men drool. And that's what the whole thing was about. And as a woman, I was one of the first ones saying this.
This whole thing is ridiculous. John Boyega attacked Disney. Now, I know there were, look, again, I'm not saying everybody's a saint.
No, there were definitely racist and misogynists out there that do shitty things.
Right. Were there people who were upset that there was a black stormtrooper? Probably, but...
Not that we saw, but I'm not going to say it didn't happen because it most likely did. I
mean, it's the same with, I keep hearing that, supposedly misogynists were going after Wonder Woman. If it was a very...
We didn't hear about it.
Minor... I mean, people freaking love Wonder Woman.
I do. I love Wonder Woman. Except for 84. Boo.
And 84 was a disappointment. But yeah, as far as John Boyega is concerned, he went tearing after Disney because they did. They built Finn up to be a major character in the films. He wound up being comic relief.
And he had one of the most interesting character arcs of anyone.
Yeah.
He was an ex-stormtrooper turned, rebel soldier turned possibly Jedi. That was far more interesting than Rey Sue that just showed up and it was like, I'm a nobody, but I'm a somebody, but I'm a nobody, but I'm a somebody. And I was just dumped on this desert planet for no reason, but somehow I know how to fly the Falcon, fix the Falcon, use a lightsaber my first try and everything else. Heck, we even saw Luke, he couldn't even use a lightsaber right the first few times. Mary Sue Ray was more of a character than Finn, and people wanted to see more Finn or put them co-stars.
Yeah, that's what most people thought was going to happen. Or I would have personally liked since they separated them at the end of the first movie, had Finn go off to train with Luke Skywalker, and then Rey actually kind of gets lured to the dark side by Kylo Ren, and then the two have to fight, but maybe team up at the end of in the last movie.
That would have been a much more interesting story.
Would have been very interesting.
More Star Wars too, and people. There has been countless articles and videos dedicated to how John Boyega got shafted in Star Wars and about the racism that Disney showed towards him. Tons of it. They never mentioned that in the Hollywood Reporter article. Of course not. Don't you know everybody's again? Oh, and then they keep Kelly Marie Tran being bullied off of stupid social media. They keep running with this. Every time anything happens, they're going to run with that story. Every time.
It's like Kelly Marie Tran has become the shield.
We call it the Tran maneuver.
Literally. We've been calling it the Tran remover.
The maneuver. You said remover. You mean the Tran maneuver. You need more coffee, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But, James Earl Jones. His birthday came and went, his 90th birthday. The voice of Darth Vader, he was ignored. Do you want to know why he probably was ignored? Because he's a conservative, which I didn't know. I didn't care.
They also shafted Carl Weathers on his birthday.
Also a conservative.
If you were associated with the old trilogy, a lot of times you get shafted. Then a couple of days after they shafted James Earl Jones on his birthday, and it wasn't an oversight because the UK Star Wars Twitter did celebrate his birthday.
Yeah, they did.
People kept pointing out to them, hey, you missed James Earl Jones' birthday. So it wasn't like they were unaware. And if it was unaware, they could be like, oh, we're sorry, how dare we? And then fixed it. But they did nothing. And then they turned around a couple days later and then used racism and Martin Luther King Jr. Day to discuss how racism is bad and how important it is to celebrate Black people after they stepped over James Earl Jones, who was literally the backbone of Star Wars.
Yeah,
character, Darth Vader.
Yeah, I know. It's like, George Lucas said that his Star Wars saga was about Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, and it is. And, but, we can't have that because George Lucas
Well, curious that y'all used a black man as bait and switch protagonist and made him the epitome of a token black sidekick. Yes, this is our point. But you don't see that in the Hollywood Reporter article. No, it's just about how racist or, other people, the toxic fan racists are against John Boyega and Kelly Marie Tran, even though most Star Wars fans thought that, the ones that you'd label alt-right were mad that John Boyega got shafted.
So here we go again, another half-truth and lie. Disney's Lucasfilm has been at the forefront of the conversation
about racism.
In January, cosplayer and host Christina Ariel faced racist attacks and threats after the studio named her host of the High Republic show, a bi-monthly show on StarWars.com, and YouTube giving an inside look at the galaxy far, far away.
They're just giving a look at the High Republic, which nobody cares about.
That's the problem. Ahead of the show's debut, previous tweets from Ariel denouncing systemic racism. That's not what they were. Essentially calling upon white people to own their role in it had resurfaced. Show us the tweets, Hollywood Reporter, because it did not go the way
I believe we have the tweets.
We actually do have those tweets, yeah.
So they didn't mention that. They didn't mention the actual tweets. Just here's the narrative we're pushing. And the tweets that were brought up. Now, we have said countless times that these tweets were made during the riots and during, the George Floyd situation and all that. So it could be that, she just was caught in the moment and very upset and emotional and saying things. Because a lot of people who work with her on other shows have said that, she's actually not like this. This is not how she usually is. And they went to bat for her. So we even gave her the benefit of the doubt. But it's really funny because these are the things that were said. White people, fucking stop it. Your racism won't save you. Your ignorance is not an excuse. Just a reminder that white women are just as complicit in the upholding and enforcing of white supremacy. Now, if I change this to any other race, I'd be in big trouble because white people can't let us have shit unless they can center themselves as the hero.
But wait. You're working for Lucasfilm who took Finn out of the lead.
Wait. We have the Hollywood Reporter article trying to say about how Christina Ariel and white knighting for her by a white dude.
Yeah, this is a little odd. Yeah.
They talk about this, but before one more person asked me why, it's because white people seem to think that black people exist as a monolith and only believe one way. They think that when one white person says something, we all feel that way. Basically, they're ignorant, and they make comments like, dear or white people, stop it. Pot or kettle there.
We've got some followers who I know are black folks who maybe use anime avatars or something like that. And they've gotten smacked down so hard by people for being racists when they themselves are black. They're just not telling people they're black because
it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. Your opinion, your mind or in your mouth is what should matter. That's what people should judge you for is what's inside your head, not what's outside. And I've seen people call people I know are black folks racists and whatever, and you white hate whatever, just assuming they're white, but they're black people with a different opinion.
Mm-hmm. Or even like we saw Peter Simonetti gets called white supremacist all the time. He's Asian.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hilarious to me. But yeah, she's like, all white people think, black people think all the same way and they all believe the same things, as Christina Ariel says the exact same thing about white people. This whole thing was a load of shit. Now, I believe you said these tweets were deleted.
I believe they were deleted. Yeah.
And the thing is, we even gave her the benefit of the doubt. We're like, it's really shitty things to say, but under the circumstances, it was very charged, and people that stood up for her that she worked with. Okay, so fine, whatever. Well, it was still shitty things to say, and she didn't apologize for it. But in response to this, Lucasfilm, okay, then this is after Lucasfilm did what they did to John Boyega, did what they did to James Earl Jones, everything else, stood by while, Gina Carano was being harassed. They put up a statement. Do you have that?
Right here.
Okay, yeah, here it is. Our Star Wars community is one of hope and inclusivity. We do not stand for bullying and racism. The same Star Wars that people called out that ignored James Earl Jones' birthday, that, had, taken John Boyega's character of Finn and made him the typical black sidekick, shrunk him on a poster for China. Yeah. The same Star Wars that did that is now saying that bullying and racism is bad. Meanwhile, other actors that they've had were getting bullied and attacked, and they said nothing.
Yep. And so what happened when they put this out there? Okay, is it opened up a can of worms, fired Gina Carano, and guess what? A week or two later, she was fired.
Well, it gets there in the Hollywood Reporter article. Let's go back to the article. It gets there. It goes on. It's about she received numerous threats via social media, which I believe because we saw it with Gina Carano too. Yes, then we have to go on here and about, we have these scholars and that scholars and
for fuck's sake, these scholars write biased articles that a lot of these people have never left college. they basically they're lifelong academics. They live in their ivory towers. Can we say that? Is that still something we can say?
Yeah, ivory towers are a thing. So yes, ivory towers.
No, and they don't. They basically just get paid to write papers and lecture people. And
basically, and tell people, you need to kill two birds. It says that killing two birds with one stone, you have to, feed two birds with one scone, and you can't use certain words they use in tech because they're horrible. But then they go on here about Gina Carano. Of course they do. So they're talking about, well, the studio backed her, but they parted ways with Gina Carano, who shared a series of controversial social posts over several months, including one that lightened the plate of conservatives. She never said that to Jews before the Holocaust. And Lucasfilm said upon her firing that the social media posts were denigrating. People based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. Meanwhile, she was hired by Shapiro, who himself is Jewish. But we have the post.
Yeah, here's the post. This is what and you can go out and she said she didn't mean to offend trans people. She just got tired of being dogpiled.
That was a different one. We have those too, but this one, Jews are beaten in the streets not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children. Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to a point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews and take your neighbors away, that kind of thing. The government first made their own neighbors basically hate each other simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? Now, she was meaning on both sides. She never said Republicans. She never said Democrats. She's just saying, we're fighting each other, and it's easier to control us because we're too busy fighting each other instead of standing up together. It was her point. And even Forbes called Disney out for this firing of Gina Carano. They said that they went too far. It was too far what they did. Meanwhile, Pedro Pascal has made posts like this: losers in 1865 Confederate flag, losers in 1945 Nazi flag, losers in 2020 a MAGA hat.
Yeah, but that's okay.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
He also had a post where he had children that weren't even in an American detainment center. It was another country, and said that it was basically compared children in what he thought was an American detainment center to Holocaust people. And he didn't even have a picture that was accurate and valid picture. Now, he put those up. A lot of backlash, got to keep his job.
Yeah.
They also go on about the Gina Carano, about the tweets, about the transphobic tweets. I noticed they didn't mention it in this article, but they often mention it, but not give receipts, and context of it. If you actually look at it, she said she was not going to put pronouns in her bio. She understood why, but she wasn't going to do that. But she supported them in doing that because she's against bullying. To which she got just as many hateful, nasty, horrible tweets as Christina Ariel, and calling her all kinds of terrible, toxic names. They kept bullying and abusing her, which Disney did nothing about, until she finally made the beep, bop, beep, or whatever she said.
Beep, bop, boop.
Or boop, or whatever she said in her bio. And then they're like, she's against trans people. It's like she never was. But they never put it in context with the actual history of what happened. Basically, her crime was she didn't vote the way they wanted her to.
Now, we're going to take a side tour here because we didn't cover this in a separate video because it's too stupid to cover in its own video. Speaking of trans in Star Wars, right? So there's this thing going around that they're like, 2 fan favorite characters are trans non-binary. Who? Literally, who? They're twins. Tarek and Saret or whatever from the High Republic, of course, are headlines saying they're fan favorites. One, who are these characters? 2, Tomax and Zygmunt did it better back in the 80s. They did. And 3, trans non-binary.
Yeah, like what the hell is trans non-binary? It might be a thing, but it doesn't. It seems like an oxymoron.
The only reference to it I can find is from Star Wars press release. It got picked up all over the place. I'm like, I even went out to Pink News and I'm like, trans is one thing and non-binary is another because you pick a gender. Right.
Trans usually means that you feel like you are not, you were born in the wrong gender, so you transition to their gender so you feel safe, you're comfortable in your own skin. The other one, non-binary, means that you don't feel like you don't want to be represented by binary genders, so you do your own thing. But this happens to be launched, this new thing that they came up with, to get all these headlines on Trans Visibility Day. So basically, Star Wars just tried to leverage trans people to try to get hits and fist bumps and to boost the High Republic. They literally used a marginalized group of people to try to boost themselves.
How progressive. How progressive of you, Lucasfilm. Anyway, just had to bring that up because we didn't do a video on it. But it is interesting that they shoehorned trans into what were clearly non-binary characters just to be able to use that hashtag just to market their shitty comic books.
Or they might be trying to spin it as that in the books. And my next question is, they better have someone writing those books. I know he's not. That is trans or non-binary or trans non-binary. Otherwise, how very dare they? Because you have to stay in your own lane. If they are not those things themselves, they have absolutely no right writing comic books representing them.
That's true. Those are the rules, right? So Kelly Marie Tran, she left social media. There's more to that story than what the media keeps latching on to. They're basically like, she was harassed off of Instagram by a bunch of alt-right Star Wars fans, and she actually chose, as I understand it, she chose to leave before a lot of the backlash happened for other reasons.
Yeah, and you know what? I get harassed, and I know other women and people that are minorities who don't follow the narrative get harassed on social media all the damn time by these people, but no one ever mentions that, by people like these media outlets and things. No one ever mentions that, though, you know.
So one rep of a lower profile Disney actor
which they don't name.
Yeah, they don't name. So, I mean, it could or could not be true.
Because we have this one person, because we say so. Take our word for it.
They said that you can only do so much, but if you're speaking out, you have to speak out for everyone.
Well, I do agree with that. I agree that if you're speaking out, you have to speak out for everyone. And they did nothing with, was Letitia Wright? They did nothing about her getting harassed. When the Chris Pratt situation, his fellow actors stepped up to defend him. Disney and Lucasfilm and Marvel did nothing.
Yeah, and Zoe Saldana they called her slammed.
Yeah, the people
got called the N-word repeatedly.
It's horrible. These toxic fans that are racist. Meanwhile, Zoe Saldana stands up for Chris Pratt, and these people were calling her vulgar, horrible terms for being a black woman that were just beyond. Like they were just so toxically trashy, horrible things because how dare she stand up for Chris Pratt? And I was just like, you're embodying everything. If you want to talk about toxic people, there you go. But of course, they were on the side of the side they vote for, so that is completely acceptable as long as it's them saying it.
It's whoever's useful. It's whoever's useful at the moment, and it changes. It changes from month to month. Useful idiots. So here we go again, another academic. It's necessary to have that tone set in order to make it manageable to ignore the trolls and put defamatory, and hostile attitudes at margin, says Andre Carrington, author of Speculative Blackness, the Future Race of Science Fiction.
Why are all the academics
the future of race
about blackness? Why are they all the academics only about that? If we're talking about Kelly Marie Tran, who was Asian, and we're talking about women and toxic behavior towards like the women and Ghostbusters, why do we keep going back to that?
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I want to point out again, it was Disney and Lucasfilm who were behaving in racist manners. Anyway. They're an associate professor of English at the University of California, Riverside. Not surprised. This is interesting, though. While so-called toxic fans take up an oversized place in the media's and the public's imaginations, Cinema Blend journalists suspect it's a relatively small contingent of fandom. It is relatively small.
O'Connell, who studies Snyder fandom closely, knows that Sarnoff's comments about toxic fans received little pushback from the community.
Yes, a lot of people were like telling people that were wrongfully downvoting Godzilla and calling for restore the Snyderverse to stop it because they said that they're not representing the fandom.
Yeah, instead was Sarnoff's comments about Snyder's Justice League universe not continuing on after the Snyder Cut that received the most disappointment. If you ignore them, you are silently condoning what they do. No, not really. I understand the need to have a zero tolerance policy. In theory, the idea of toxic fandom is paradoxical. Fandoms are supposed to be places where people find a community.
I love this one.
A place of inclusion.
And they were.
Unless you're a Nazi.
Until a few years ago. I love this. They keep spinning this narrative that fans have been gatekept. Fandoms have been gatekept. They were not. I've been around a fan for decades. I was never gatekept until about 2014, 2016, and when the stupid new Disney Star Wars trilogy came out. That's when I saw gatekeeping. That's when I saw people being called names, being marginalized, being stepped over. It was after the Star Wars sequel trilogy that I really started to see it in those kind of fan circles.
And I think it was run off from Gamergate.
I agree.
I think Gamergate, because gaming is like the big nerd bastion, right? It eclipses comics. Superhero movies hadn't blown up really that much at this point compared to video games. And video games is kind of like the last bastion of hardcore nerds. Tabletop had already fallen years before. So the journalists, it turned out that the games journalists were pretty dubious, a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And they got called out on it by portions of the fandom. And there were some other, incidents that happened that showed just how skeezy games journos were. This kicked off Gamergate. Not something that anybody really wants to repeat on either side. Well, I thought. And then we've been seeing more and more articles pop up lately that, seem to be trying to reignite Gamergate.
They're trying to reignite Gamergate. They're trying to bring up the issues with the Star Wars sequel trilogy and Rian Johnson's Last Jedi over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for the last 2 years now. Now, why? Right? We're going to tie this back to kind of the unified theory of everything. These media outlets, they're running out of money. Okay, a lot of them have venture capital infusion, and usually a round of venture capital lasts about 5 years. You're given like a 5-year plan, then you're given millions of dollars, and these idiotic blogs and digital media companies have been burning through the money, thinking the gravy train would never end. Well, guess what? Trump's out of office, and the ad rates are down, partially because of the pandemic and partially because your shit's not worth advertising on and nobody cares. There's been a lot of talk about how the Huffington Post was kind of a death knell for digital journalism. Talked yesterday about how BuzzFeed and Vice have been valued at half of what they were valued at a couple of years ago, and they have to go beg for more money now. You were looking into the Hollywood Reporter and some other outlets being propped up by another venture capital.
Well, they had get venture capital Variety and stuff like that, and then they all bought out. They're all owned by the same company now. And interestingly enough, I wanted to point out something. Oh, you go ahead and point this out, and then I'll point out something else.
Yeah, just to reiterate, this is from Talking Points Memo, very short article from John Marshall, who basically said these digital media outlets were never sustainable. They were propped up by venture capital. A lot of journalists are getting hit upside the head with the cold, hard brick of reality.
Learn to code.
They're going to have to learn to code because you know what? We're going to need coders. We're not going to need journos. So why are they trying to reignite their glory days? Basically, it's kind of like Al Bundy. You know how he always talks about high school football? Because that was that. These journalists, to them, it's like, wow, peak journalism for us was Gamergate and The Last Jedi, and so let's bring all this shit up again.
Yeah, let's try to start it again. And then you get things like, the Riri trying to show up and connect everything when they don't connect. One thing was interesting to me though was I actually looked at the author's Twitter. Yeah. And if you look at who he follows or we'll look at who he follows. Okay, it was interesting to me. Let me see this for a minute. Who he follows. Variety, senior writer of Variety, which also is the same people own the Hollywood Reporter.
Oh yeah, but look at this one.
This one's what I was going to pull out.
Yeah.
Kristen Marston consults with writers, producers, and executives. Okay, across the board, writers, producers, and executives to support inclusive TV and film narratives. I checked. She follows him back. Then they have Variety. They have a lot of authors. There was another one that was down here on the list that was another one of these. Oh yeah, I don't know if she follows him back, but I saw that he followed her. I saw another person that was on the list that was a person that is in charge of comms for what's Heidi McDonald was in charge of comms for Warner, and she follows him back, and her job is a head of communications.
Jason Kilar.
Yep. Yeah. These are the people that he's following. Now, if you check, they follow, some of them follow him back.
Now, it doesn't necessarily matter because, again, if you're a journalist, you're going to follow the people that are, making the news, basically. But, there is a very cozy relationship. You mentioned there's Gail Simone. You see the same names come up again and again and again and again. And there are probably only a few dozen pop culture journalists, and you don't think they talk back channel?
Yeah, and if you go through his list, there's a whole bunch of people who follow him and he follows back that are other journalists, and they all follow each other. And I know I can't find the one chick right now, but the one woman who was in charge of comms, communication for Warner Brothers, follows him and he follows her.
So here we have investigative reporter, New York Times. Again, they're going to follow each other, but you don't think they talk? You don't think they
You
talk?
don't think it's awfully weird that they all start writing the exact same things, hit pieces at the exact same time, and they will not let this go. And like you said, you never see them covering articles like about toxicity with things like Steven Universe or other things. It's always the same people. It's always trying to malign alt-right, whatever. Even though most people they're yelling about aren't even Republicans. Over usually Star Wars, Ghostbusters in 2016, Alita, something like that.
Well, that's
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about, because they're accusing YouTubers, independent YouTubers, and independent voices and independent fandoms, even though there's some that crosses over in the Venn diagram, I guess, of some grand coordinated right-wing attack, being an attack group.
Me thinks there's some projection.
No, there absolutely is projection going on, because this what escalated a lot of this, again, was this rewriting Ripley article. And I guarantee you that those people behind this were talking to some of these journalists, talking to some of these academics, gathering data. They're traveling, but then they want to accuse all these YouTubers of being in some grand conspiracy headed up by Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones.
Beyond that, though, as soon as the Snyder Cut hit, they went back to the toxic fandom. Well,
yeah.
And I want to point out again, they always bring up about Captain Marvel and Alita. But as a woman, I want to bring up the point that, we had 2 strong female-led movies in the box office simultaneously. It was a win for women, and it should have been reported as such. But they spent all their time trying to tear down Alita to elevate Captain Marvel, and it was ridiculous. It's like, why can't we just be happy that we have 2 strong females in the box office and they're kicking ass? I mean, why could we not be happy about that? Why did we have to try to malign one to elevate the other when we could have just been happy about the win that was there? If you truly were about women's rights and you truly were about women in film and you truly were about seeing more females on screen, that was a win. There was no reason to pit them against each other at all, other than narrative. Who benefits? Disney.
So they're talking about how, fandom in the 50s with the zines, that fandoms...
50s was different.
Yeah,
it was the 50s.
Communities were presumed to be white spaces back
in the 50s. Surprise.
Then along came Star Trek, the original Star Trek.
Yes, and did all kinds of stuff, but whatever. Let's just keep going with that. Oh, and they had to bring up the black girl nerds, which I think that wasn't their whole thing with the quartering about that.
Was it? Yeah.
I don't even know. I don't pay attention. So they had to bring that in there.
We have a lot of black viewers.
I know, which is funny, and a lot of women too. And it's just hilarious to me that
they don't count because they're not the right kind of person.
I love this. It's not only about hiring black people or people of color. Why can't you just say people of color? Why does it be black people or people of color? There's definitely a bias here. And this is so funny because on Twitter, I was seeing people were talking about, the new thing is, Asian lives matter because of what had happened. And people were bringing that up. And there are people that are getting very, very angry because they're like, well, Asian lives matter, but black lives matter too. And no one said that was either or situation. And I remember when people brought up, well, yeah, black lives matter, but what about Asian people, Hispanic people, et cetera, et cetera? They were told that was racist because right now the black people were the ones who needed help, not those other people. So right now it was only about Black Lives Matter. But then people brought that up in response to them about the Asian Lives Matter. They were basically told, well, everybody needs help. We need to focus on everyone. I love that. I love the double standard there on these. And and that's mostly probably white people speaking for Black Lives Matter. But,
Well, okay, so a lot of people were like, how come Gina Carano was allowed to be badgered and bullied and whatever? It's because they didn't apply the black tax to her, I guess.
But yeah. Is this like the pink tax?
I don't know. They said the report highlighted the black tax. This is a McKinsey and Company report. The time and energy used to deal with situations that non-black colleagues don't face. That's why publicly supporting someone like Ariel is key, but perhaps even more meaningful are behind-the-scenes changes.
But wait, why they didn't support? They didn't change the James Earl Jones thing.
No,
they didn't change. They didn't support Carl Weathers for his birthday.
Again,
they didn't support John Boyega.
He's okay. So James Earl Jones and Carl Weathers. Granted, they are the right color, but they have the wrong political beliefs.
And the wrong parts, apparently.
So they're not really the right kind of people.
What about John Boyega?
Moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, shiny.
Shiny. Oh, look.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, look. Oh, Christina Ariel's being attacked. Oh, we're so against racism. We're just going to make you really, really small in the poster for China because Chinese people, they, which, can you say that now? Because before it was like, pandering to China and all this stuff. Now it's like, are you allowed to say that that's what they did.
I have no idea.
They were absolutely
But it goes
pandering to
on. It
Chinese
goes
audiences.
on and on. But I love that they're talking about, like this here, talking about, I can see so many more people from interests like mine, like actors from different backgrounds, cosplayers who've been so creative over the years. Is that, here's the thing. Cosplay, okay? I've mentioned this many times on the channel if you've listened. I loved anime cons and the cosplay, that kind of groups because, anime cons especially, for years, they just accepted everyone. Like, we saw so many people that were different races cosplaying characters that weren't like them, and nobody flippin' cared. You had people that weren't white playing Sailor Moon characters. You had Draculaura, who was a very, very, very pale woman. She's actually kind of pink, being played, cosplayed by a black woman. Daughter didn't care. She just saw Draculaura and was thrilled to death. Nobody cared.
She had an awesome costume.
She did. Her costume was amazing.
I saw a white kid dressed as Black Panther.
Yeah.
Because Black Panther was his favorite superhero.
Right. And nobody cared. Like, they just didn't care. Like, you see it all the time. We go to cons, we go to cons all the time. And for years, people would come in and they'd gender bend a character. Nobody cared. They'd race bend a character. Nobody cared. They were just like, oh, that's a fantastic costume. That's awesome. I love it. Nobody flipping cared until a journalist decided that it was a problem, and they made it a problem, and then blamed it on everybody else, like anything else, like Jar Jar Binks. No one really had a problem until the media made it a problem, and then they blamed the fans for it.
Nobody left the Phantom Menace. They might have left the Phantom Menace and been like, what the hell, what's with the little kid and the, Jar Jar Binks fart jokes and all that. But nobody left the Phantom Menace that I'm aware of and was like, oh my God, that was the most racist movie I've ever seen. They were like, what the hell? What's with the little kid? Yippee, that's Darth Vader? What the hell?
Yeah.
But actually, most of the people that saw it, now granted, I went, to the midnight show and they were diehard Star Wars fans. Most people, at least for the first week or so, loved the Phantom Menace. And then it wasn't until the media started kicking the racism thing into overdrive, and it was like, well, okay, so it's a really shitty movie, and it's also racist, and then that became the narrative. Like, it's a shitty racist movie, and then poor Ahmed Best, they sidelined him, just like they did with John Boyega.
Yeah, he didn't even get his blue check on Twitter until last year.
Yeah, but look, John Boyega got the Jar Jar treatment because Jar Jar was a major part of the first movie. They clearly were setting him up. George Lucas was setting him up for something else. There was media backlash and, fan backlash, whatever. And he sidelined Jar Jar Binks. He had a small role in episode 2 and he was barely in episode 3.
Mm-hmm. Same thing that happened to Rose Tico, but you don't mention, Ahmed Best, but you always mention Kelly Marie Tran. And I love how the media wants to just pick and choose now. You can pretty much track back most of the outrage, most of the toxicity to media outlets saying that's the case. And then they're painting everybody with a broad brush, even when they didn't do it. Are there people out there who do shitty things? Yes. But they are the very, 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 very minority of the fandom. They are not representative of the fandom, but you have no problem painting everyone in the fandom with a broad brush if they don't agree with you on something.
Yeah, and to cover their asses, sometimes they'll mention that in like a sentence.
Like that article?
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, okay, well, to be fair, Screen Rant and Collider or whatever says, or Cinema Blend says, yeah, it's a very small percentage. Here, let's pull up some more academic studies.
But here's a whole article about how but these people are terrible. And they basically pull up the things that people like us cover all the time, basically insinuating that we are the toxic people, when we've been calling out this toxic bullshit this entire time, because you are not allowed not to like something. You're supposed to respect their right to like it, but they can disrespect you up and down and label you as things you aren't just because it makes it easier to dismiss you. Yeah. It's easier to dismiss somebody and bully somebody, including people who are not white, straight, and male. A lot of people you bully and dismiss are the people you're claiming to represent and be speaking for. Stop it. And then of course I joked. I said it's going to be a white guy who wrote this article, and it was a white guy who wrote the article. I was like, you cannot make this shit up.
If you want to know what their point is, and we've learned this over the last couple of years, go to the end. Go to the last couple paragraphs of any of these articles and see what they close with. That will tell you where their headspace is or what the actual purpose of the article is. Because a lot of times when these journalists would get into like the anti-Trump diatribe, it would be buried clear at the bottom of the article. Like, oh, PlayStation 5, it's okay, whatever. And Trump and the world's going to hell.
Yes, and it'd be like unrelated something.
So you get to the very bottom and it just ends. It just talks about how Christina Ariel should be allowed to be on the High Republic.
Well, she can have the High Republic because nobody wants the High Republic and it's tanking. I think Christina Ariel probably, you know, I mean, that if you want to say that this black woman only deserves the High Republic, it's you saying it, not us.
It's a shitty thing, but it just ends right there. So you didn't even, it's basically like it goes from Snyder fans are toxic, Star Wars fans are toxic, here's why. We try to pretend to be balanced, and right at the end, blah, 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 blah.
No, there was no pretending to balance the whole way through the
well, one sentence so they can cover their ass. And at the very end, oh yeah, and support Christina Ariel, who I follow on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just another, look, what is this about? You know you're going to be out of a fucking job.
The studios, too. I think the studios are desperately calling up the friends, trying to leverage it. I love how, you know, Warner Media was all calling out the journos with the Joker, but then when they need help, they're all like, yeah, help us with this, with the toxic Snyder Cut fans.
Yeah, because the Joker, they needed to make money. They couldn't let the Joker, you know, fail because the media was going on the offensive there. So they actually told the media to go fuck themselves when it came to the Joker. And they made $1 billion. And actually fans support them. Like, yeah, tell them to go. We've been telling them to shut up for months. But now they need the media. Because I think what's going on behind the scenes is not about the toxicity. It's about the fact that they plan to reboot the DCEU. And oh my God, we can't have these Snyder fans demanding that we continue Zack Snyder's.
That's not just Snyder fans. I saw another article, I don't know how to pull it up, but for all it wasn't doing well. There was a whole article talking about how it was like 60-some% of downloads were the Snyder Cut and all this other stuff. So they're saying one thing, but the data's pointing to another. And what benefit? Like you said, they already had a plan for it. They don't want to go back into the Snyder's version of it. And now they know that people are going to ask for it. And they're trying to shoot down, label it toxic, label him toxic, so they can just rush under the rug. Like and do everything else. If we don't want to do it, we want it our way, we'll just bully, marginalize, label people, do everything that we say is bad. We'll do it and then say that it's because they're all bad people.
Yeah, and I know what's going to happen. That's going to be the narrative. When they drop the J.J. Abrams Superman and it's got Black Superman, they're already like, oh my God, it's the toxic Snyder Cut fans and the Gamergators and the Star Wars haters, the same people that harassed Christina Ariel. They're just mad that Superman is finally black. And it's like, no, they're pissed because you had a good thing going, Warner. We supported it, and then you pulled the plug on it.
Right, and it's going to continue because it's never their fault. If something fails, it can't be their fault. They're going to go to the studio, the directors, the producers, whatever, the people that you don't have to answer other people. It's because of this minute group of people that just smeared it because they're all toxic and they control the entire world and global audience somehow. We have that much power that we can control whoever, or globally, who goes to see a damn movie and their politics, even though they have nothing to do with American politics at all.
Yeah, we call it Schrodinger's fandom.
That's right.
You're simultaneously not important and the most important thing.
And the reason behind everything.
The reason behind everything is Schrodinger's fandom. So we're going to wrap this one up.
Yeah, this was long. We told you.
Okay, guys. So if you haven't done so already, please support the channel. Please subscribe.
We don't do Royal Long ones like this that much.
Normally we don't, but this is, again, this is kind of the culmination of everything we've been seeing for the last couple weeks. It does feel like an end game. Like this is the last big push that the media is going to try to demonize fans with. And I guess my question to you is, have you wisened up?
Yeah, fight back.
Fight back.
And if you are, now I'm not saying attack people. I'm not saying do not go bother this writer. I'm not saying that. If you want to comment on the article or whatever, that's up to you. But what I am saying is, you need to, like, when you see people getting marginalized and attacked, stand up and say no. And then people that are not white, straight, and male, if you're effing tired of the fact that they keep excluding you and stepping over you, and then yelling that they're defending your rights and they're standing up for you, tell them no.
Yeah, I love how Mark Waid was slapping down just some guy, and he's a black dude.
But then Mark Waid was in trouble for writing a comic because it was about a black character and he wasn't black.
Yeah,
I love how that works, don't you?
It's whatever is useful that day.
Right. Yeah, stand up.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.